Welcome to the Proven Podcast, where it does not matter what you think, only what you can prove. Everyone says you can't change your brand without losing your audience. Finn McKenty proves them dead wrong. He built over 1 million followers talking about music, then flipped his entire audience to business consulting without losing a single customer. Today, he shows you exactly how to rebrand at any scale without starting over. The show starts now.
All right, welcome back. Today we're with someone who is pivoting his entire market and what he's known for and retaking control of his audience. I'm really excited to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to get into it.
So you've done something, and I saw one of your posts that you did on YouTube recently, and we'll do the preamble. We tell everybody who you are and all that, so they know that now. 2 months ago, you said, this isn't my truth anymore. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm being forced to talk about rock and roll and not about what I actually do, which is, my business and how I scale things and all of that. And being able to retake control of your audience is something that most people have a hard time doing, especially when in a situation where tonight's the debate. By the time people see this, it'll already be done, where people aren't happy with what they have, but they're forced to be stuck in this environment. Do me a favor, tell everybody a little bit more of how you got where you are and what kind of your next steps are.
I will do that in a second. The first thing I want to do is say that, unless someone literally has a gun to your head, you're not forced to do anything. It's all a choice. And that's step number one, is to believe that all of this is a choice and you can do whatever the fuck you want as long as you have a plan and you're willing to do it. So to answer your question, I started out YouTube in 2017, in September of 2017, so almost exactly 7 years ago. And my goal there was basically just to build my personal brand, and I wanted people to know who I was because I had done a lot of stuff in my career that I thought was pretty cool. I mean, my day job, so to speak, is product design and marketing. I started out in kind of the agency world, did some stuff for like Nike and Nintendo and Red Bull back in the day, which I was wildly unqualified for, and I did terrible work for them, but I got some big names, in my portfolio, which is sort of the first step to climbing the ladder there. Moved on, did a lot of other agency work, like primarily the main thing, I worked at a agency that did a lot of stuff for Procter and Gamble, like Tide and Febreze and Swiffer and Bounce and stuff like that, which actually ended up being way more interesting than I thought it would be. I was also a designer and marketer at Abercrombie and Fitch. So I'd done a lot, but like nobody gave a shit, because it's like you can tell people all this stuff. They're like, oh, that's nice. They don't care, right?
They don't care.
And it didn't feel good, and I felt kind of invisible, and I felt like I was an outsider looking in on the world because, even though I had done this stuff that I thought was cool, and I knew that I was good at my job, for whatever reason, people just didn't care. And I said, all right, well, I've got to do something to make people care about me, because I didn't want to be one of these people sitting on the sidelines complaining, that the world was passing me by. I was like, well, I'm going to fucking figure this out. So I started the YouTube channel because I sort of knew that at the time that's where attention was. I'd done blogging and stuff like that before, but that had, died in the 2010s. And I said, okay, YouTube's the thing, so I'm going to be there. I started out talking about business, which I would say is the thing I'm most interested in. And I did probably, I don't know, 50 videos or something like that about business. And again, nobody cared, which, to some extent, that's part of the deal on YouTube. When you start out, you're going to get 50 views. That's kind of how it is. But I was really just not getting any kind of traction there. And I was like, I think I need to pivot. That's always sort of a question you need to ask yourself. You've seen that meme of the miner, like digging towards the diamond and they both quit. One guy's an inch away, whatever. You never really know which one of those two miners you are, but I said, I think I need to pivot. And I had written about music and stuff before. So I had a decent sized audience from that. I had blogs that, I don't know, maybe in their peak were getting hundreds of thousands of unique viewers a month, which is pretty decent. So I kind of knew how to talk about that. And I said, well, I'm just going to completely pivot and talk about music. And even though not necessarily the thing I was super interested in at that point in my life, but I knew there was an audience for it. And again, my goal was just to make people know who I was. And that's the reason why I said my name at the beginning of every video for like the first 6 years. I stopped doing that recently, but I said my name there because I wanted people to literally know my name and face. And I did that. It's I have like 120 or 130,000, or sorry, 120 or 130 million views now. So there's like literally tens of millions of people that know my name and face, which is the reason why I did this. I also made a lot more money from it than I anticipated that I would. I didn't really think I would make any, and I made a lot. And so now I'm sort of at the point you mentioned where I did what I came to do with it. my audience wants, which is fine. This is the nature of any sort of media platform. The audience has expectations, but the thing they want to hear about is kind of not something I really want to talk about. And I've achieved what I wanted to achieve with it. So I think it's time to move on.
So that move on step, is it hard? Because I mean, you were trying to fill a certain cup, which was I want to be seen, I want to be known, I don't
Yep.
want to be invisible anymore. That cup's been full. You've
Yep.
done that. You've got millions and millions of people, at least at the very minimum, know your name and what your face looks like. You're now in the process of pivoting away, which means you're the process of abandoning kind of that audience and doing that.
Yep.
How have you struggled through that? Because a lot of people do this. We're like, hey, I'm going this way. It's not working for me, or it is working, but it's not going to get me to that next level. Kind of the Tarzan effect, where you're kind of swinging vine to vine, but you hold on to one and you mean you got to let go of another one. That's kind of where you are at this moment. If not, you lose momentum.
Hmm.
When you had to make that decision, what were the steps that you went through that you're like, you know what? Screw it. If I walk away from this, I need to do this and honor my authentic truth. What was that walkthrough process? How long did it take you? What are the questions you kind of asked yourself as you went through that?
Well, I laid the foundation for this starting a few years ago because I knew this, like, I never wanted to be like a person who talked about music on YouTube forever. So I didn't know whether that was going to last 3 years or 5 years or 10 years or what the number would be, but I knew that it was going to come at some time. And I knew that I would want to focus on business because that's the thing I'm most interested in. And so, one specific tactical thing that I did from the very beginning is I included a link to my LinkedIn in the description of every video. Even though I wasn't really very active on there, I just figured, I'm going to get some amount of passive traffic there, and why not build my followers, even if I'm not doing anything with it yet, because I know that I'm going to someday. So that's like thing number one is like build the bridge before you need it. Ideally, don't wait until you have that like holy shit moment. You build it before you need it. So I started doing that from the very beginning. So I built, I don't know, I probably got 7 or 8,000 followers on LinkedIn or something from that, which isn't like huge, but that's pretty decent. And even if we assume that like most of those are not really like my target audience, still like it's still 7 or 8,000 people that I got
Absolutely.
with literally zero effort. And then in 2021, I think I started posting on LinkedIn, I would say infrequently, but I was getting a little bit more active there. Again, just like if I was building the scaffolding around the bridge, from the beginning, now I was sort of like slowly on the weekends showing up with a little bit of lumber here and there and sort of piecing it together again because I knew this was going to happen eventually. And so I
All right.
decided, yeah, go ahead.
No, no, you went. I was asking is you thought about this years and years and years ago.
Yeah,
When did you decide to pull the trigger? That
uh,
because that's we've all talked about this, and when I built my Graham account, I was like, all right, I know I'm going to do something with this someday. I don't know what it's going to be.
right.
So not having that clarity, what were your steps where you got into the clarity, and what is it that you do want to do in the business environment? Because you've worked with huge brands, you've obviously
Yeah.
clearly been successful in your quote unquote day job. What is it that you want to do, and what is the value you want to bring to the market?
Well, let me answer. There's a few questions in there, and let me answer them sort of in order because I want to, if there's anybody else listening to this, I want to give them some very actionable steps for this. So from the very beginning, I sort of knew a number that I wanted to get to. That like if I hit this number in terms of the amount of money that I have invested, then I think I'm probably okay to make the leap. And so I had that number in mind, and I hit that around like November or December of last year. And I was like, "Okay, I think that means I'm okay to do this." And I have a friend who's also a financial planner, and so I called him and I screen shared everything, and I was like, "This is what I got going on. Here's what I think I wanna do. Like, am I clear to proceed, boss?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, you can quit tomorrow if you want to." So, I got the blessing of, and of my wife, of course, but I got the blessing of, financial planner, so I sort of again, I had the exit plan from the very beginning, or something close to it. So yeah, I hit that. And then once I had sort of made that decision, and I still, for anybody who's watching this now, like I still have these active YouTube channels. I haven't like stopped yet, but I'm going to probably around September, I think. So in November, I started revamping my LinkedIn again, like to sort of go back to the metaphor of building the bridge before you need it. I started revamping my LinkedIn. I have some smart friends who, helped me kind of talk, walk through all the exercises of optimizing my portfolio and repositioning myself. And all those nitty-gritty details about your, headline and your about and all that stuff, which I'd be happy to talk to because I think these are super important. But they help me work through all
Absolutely.
that. I've probably gone through like 8 iterations of that, over like 3 months or something like that before I landed on what I have now. And so then I started getting more active on LinkedIn. Again, just sort of building this thing before I need it. And I'm not making enough to pay the bills. And so to answer your other question of like what value I want to provide. So what I sort of experimented with a few different offers and positioning and stuff like that. But the thing I've landed on, which I'm getting a lot of traction on, is personal branding for entrepreneurs, especially like sort of, I would say, unconventional entrepreneurs, although I suppose all of them are kind of unconventional by nature, but that's what we're landing on. So if you're an entrepreneur and you want to grow on YouTube or LinkedIn, I can help you do that. And I probably had 30 clients or something this year, which, for my first 6 months in business, I feel pretty fucking good about that.
That's really, really good. So when you talk about rebranding on LinkedIn, it's a huge pivot for
Yep.
most people, especially as entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs instinctively, most entrepreneurs are so driven in a certain way that they forget these other details that matter as well. It just is what it is. We are all
Mhm.
over the place, and we will jump from one project to another project to another.
Yes.
Because I grew up as a dork. I played baseball, and then I was a swimming dork, and then I became an IT dork, and then from IT, I got into scaling businesses and personal growth, and all these things is just constant iteration. So we don't ever know, like, hey, how do we actually show up? What is the best way? And you talked about you had 8 iterations on LinkedIn. If someone's trying to kind of redesign and redevelop and rebrand themselves, which you're helping people do, you got to start obviously on LinkedIn because that's where we all live. That's the
Yep.
playground right now. That's our watering hole. What are some of the first things that you want to do as you walk into that going, shit, I don't, because I remember I abandoned my LinkedIn years ago because I have an IT background. I was like, I don't want anybody to know who I am in any way, shape, or form. This is all going to get really ugly. I'm just like, I'm not touching this. And now all of a sudden, 20 something years later, I'm like, crap, yeah, it is what it is. I go out and, I remember seeing the bands you talk about on your YouTube. I'm like, I've seen them live and I've seen them live and I'm like, shit, I'm getting old. Going in this environment where now we're like, okay, I need this. This is something that as I'm rebranding myself and putting myself out there again, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are just completely unsure on how to do this in an effective manner. And obviously, we need to do it on LinkedIn. What are some of the first steps you walk in and you talk about your headline, you talked about your about us.
Yep.
What are the things that, other than the basics, like you need a good picture, please look at the camera. Other than those basic things, what are some of the things that you've walked into that's like, what, this has obviously been huge. This has been helpful because if you've already gotten 30 something clients in 6 months, it's a huge takeoff. That's really, really good.
Yeah, it's not bad. So this is going to be this is going to be very difficult for some of the people listening. It's going to probably make them like, white knuckle a little bit. But what you got to do
Sure.
is focus. You got to be one thing to the world. And that's tough because most of us are multifaceted people. You just rattle off a bunch of things about yourself. There's probably even more things about you that you didn't mention. And
Mhm.
any of those could be the way that you present yourself to the world, right? And they're all potentially valid, but you got to pick one because um for two reasons. Number one is that people are cognitive misers, meaning that, if you tell them like, "Oh, I'm a carpenter and a portrait photographer and whatever, a landscape architect," their eyes are going to glaze over. And even if you are actually all those things, they're just not going to know what to do with you. You want people to instantly know what box to put you in and see the value in that. And that might be like, okay, I don't need that. That's okay too. The goal is to create a very focused position such that your ICP will instantly go, okay, I need that right now. I'm going to call this guy. So you got to pick that
Yeah.
one thing you want to focus on, and
Mhm.
everything you do is going to revolve around that, which was tough for me because again, I was a very credible graphic designer. Like I did it for like 10 years. I'm a very credible marketer. I'm also a very credible YouTuber. I don't mean to be up my own ass and like pretend like
It's
I'm,
okay.
but there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are like this. Like they're legitimately
Mhm.
good at a lot of things. But you
A
can't
lot of
be a
people get,
designer, marketer slash YouTuber because nobody knows what to do with that. You got to
nobody
pick
knows what to
one.
do. And the other thing I think people mess up all the time is they go too high. They're like, I'm a thought leader. I'm like, what the fuck does
Mhm.
that mean? What are you talking about? I'm an
Yes.
influencer. What the hell are you talking about? So it's the idea of inch wide, mile deep.
Yep.
So when you had this idea that you've done some amazing things, you've been a marketer, you've been a YouTuber, you've been a graphic designer.
Yep.
What did you end up locking in on? What is the one you're like, no, this is what I'm going to go with. This is how I'm going to present myself to the world for now. Because again, as you
Yeah.
said before, you snuck your LinkedIn profile in there because you knew there was going to be a pivot in the future. What did you decide to lock in now on? What was the exact one?
So the first one was about helping startups with product design and marketing, which I've done before. And like I worked at the last one I worked at was called Creative Live. It was think we raised like $60 million dollars or something like that from some very top-notch investors like Greylock and Social Capital and Google Ventures and stuff like that, which, to be clear, I didn't do that. Chase, the CEO, did, but I was present. I got in there when we were like right before we raised our Series B and stuck around for like 4 years or something. And I have a lot of experience there. I've been doing product design. I made my first website in 1995, so I'm like very credible there. And I thought, okay, well, I'll help them with this. But for reasons I can get into if you want to, like I sort of experimented with that a little bit. And I did get some traction, but I was like, this is not the right place for me because like I'm credible there, but I wouldn't say, but there's other people who are more credible. And so what you want to do is find a position for yourself such that you are a one of one or close to it, where it is instantly clear that you are in the top, 1% of this thing, whatever it is, because being in the middle 50%, you might as well just be invisible, right?
Exactly.
So I
And
go ahead.
like you were talking about before, the ability to stand out. You said you did this because I needed to stand out.
Yep,
It's kind of that same narrative. How do I make sure that I'm not invisible in any way, shape, or form? Doing that
yep,
in your LinkedIn as well. So you started out with one where I think we both made our first website about the same time. Do you remember
yep.
something called Net Objects by any chance? This program
Uh,
called Net Objects?
yes, yes,
It was embarrassing, but that actually was the first website I did. It was 95 and
yeah,
I'm old now. So I remember when
horrifying.
billboards started
Yeah,
having www on it. I'm like,
right,
quit putting the three W's. What the hell's wrong with you?
all right.
So anyway, wild. So going in and standing out, that was your first iteration. How did
Yep.
you realize that, you know what? That's not what it's going to be. I need to be that 1%, or I need to put myself in that environment. How quickly did you realize it? And then how quickly did you change to the next pivot?
Yeah, probably like I would say experimented that for like a month or two. And I got okay results there, but I wasn't really what you want to look for is signs of life when you're experimenting here. Like you're not going to probably like have an amazing business, on day one, but you want to look for some signs of life, meaning are you getting inbound, at least some inbound from people who look like they're the right kind of leads, right? Because if you are, then you just need to do more of it and you can scale it up and now you have a business. But I was really not getting any inbound. I was like, okay,
Mhm.
this feels like something is not right here. So then the next pivot I did was helping business. So same market, meaning like startups, but to help them with YouTube, because what I observed is that pretty much every company sucks at YouTube. Even like Microsoft and Oracle and stuff, they're spending,
Yeah.
God knows how much money on these videos to get 1,200 views. And I was like, well, I could definitely help them with this. Um, and so I started talking about that quite a bit. And I got a lot of engagement on that on LinkedIn, but again, I wasn't getting any inbound. And it wasn't really clear to me, because I've worked on the agency side of things, I know how it works to like
Mhm.
to get in with these sort of companies. And it wasn't really clear to me what my sort of strategy might be to get in there because they have retainer agreements with all these big agencies and blah blah blah. And I'm just like, I don't think I'm going to be able to like get in with any of these big companies unless I really want to like I think it's a low percentage thing. Small companies, you could probably get in with them, but none of them really see it as like a need. They might be like casually interested in it, but if you're a startup, that's probably going to be low down, the priority stack. So I was like, I don't think this is a good offer for them. Um, and so then, but I did start getting some inbound, but all of it was from solopreneurs. And so then I was like, so again, another lesson here. Again, you put out an offer, you see what happens, and then you adjust. And what you want to look for is like, pay attention to the people who are actually giving you attention or money, and then probably double down on that. Right. And so I did get hired by
Absolutely.
a few people, they gave me a few grand to help them and stuff. And they were all solopreneurs. And I thought about that. I was like, why is this? And then I realized it's because solopreneurs have a capacity for risk that companies don't. And there's none of the political bullshit. Like, you know how it is in any big company, getting anybody to sign off on anything is a nightmare, right?
Yeah.
And on
Yeah.
YouTube, you have to you have to be able to take chances and you have to be able to move fast. Two things that basically even small companies can't do. but solopreneurs can't. And so that was sort of the next thing I did, and that started working. And then I evolved it again to where I'm at now, which is after talking to some people about this and just sort of observing things, I was like, there's definitely a market here, but there's a much larger market for helping those same people with LinkedIn for lots of reasons. We can talk about it if you want. So I added helping them on YouTube and LinkedIn, and that has been the offer that's really working for me. But I still keep the YouTube thing there, even though I get more interest in LinkedIn because it's a differentiator. Because there's lots of people that'll talk to you about personal branding and helping entrepreneurs, with LinkedIn, but none of them have 750,000 subscribers on YouTube like I do, right? And none of them can also credibly offer to help you with LinkedIn. So when I talk to somebody, I'm like, okay, what are your goals? We could go this way with LinkedIn. We could go this way with YouTube. Both of these are an option. Let's just talk about which one makes sense. So YouTube is still my differentiator, even though it isn't necessarily like my core offer. So there was a
It,
lot there. I
it's
don't know if that's what you're
home.
looking for.
No, it's social proof. We
Yeah.
walk in all the time, and when I used to walk out on stage, it was this huge, long dissertation of who I was and what I did. The minute the book became a Wall Street Journal bestseller, I don't even get introduced by my name anymore. They're like Wall
Yep.
Street Journal bestseller, and I have to walk out. I'm like, I'm Charles Schwab. It just becomes this differentiator, and you have
Yep.
to work to those assets and those
Yep.
strengths. Everyone talks about, you want to focus on your weaknesses. Absolutely not. Double
No.
down on your strengths, outsource your weaknesses.
Make sure
So
they're not
if
crippling and then ignore them.
right, absolutely. So if someone's coming in and they're like, listen, I need to do a better job on LinkedIn. Obviously, it's where the solopreneurs are. This is where your niche is. This is something you're good at. And you can leverage your social proof, which is what you're doing with the YouTube stuff. It's phenomenal social proof. And again, not to badmouth what you've done on YouTube. It's phenomenal, but it's kind of like describing the entire ocean by one grain of sand. It just doesn't there's so much more to it. So I'm not trying to dismiss what you've done in any way, shape,
Sure.
or form. I just think that there's so much more to your story that we want to talk about. So when we come into LinkedIn and we do these type of things, what are some tangible things that are like, okay, this is what works. If you want to sit there and you want to pivot yourself and you want to say, listen, inch wide, mile deep, and you want to be stand out as a differentiator with that 1%, as you were mentioning, how
Yep.
do you do that? What are the tangible things that someone goes, crap, my LinkedIn, mine personally, is garbage. I haven't even looked at it in a long
Well, I'd
time.
be happy to
What are
help you
the
with
things
that.
that please. It's embarrassing. It's seriously, I haven't touched it. People still hit me up. They're like, we like to talk about your IT company. I'm like, I sold that like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Shit, I should update my LinkedIn. It's embarrassing. So being able to have that conversation, what are the things that people could do? Take me, for example. What are the things that
Sure.
I could do? Because I haven't touched it in a very long time. I'm
Well,
embarrassed, but it's true.
so step one is to pick that focus, like I said, and again, understand it's very likely that you'll pivot lots of times, just like I did. But you got to start somewhere, just like anything else in business. So you pick what that focus is, and then you need to optimize. Just basically give your entire profile a reboot to reflect that. So tagline, about section, banner, all that kind of stuff. And I'd be happy to get into the tactics of all those individual elements if you want, but
Yes,
do
please.
that. So what I would do, for your tagline, which I think, or your headline, which I think is kind of the most important part, because when people see you in the feed, and they like either one of your comments or, a piece of content that you make, the first thing they're going to do, they're going, oh, that's interesting or smart. Who is that? And they're going to look at your profile picture and they're going to read that headline. And that's basically what Procter and Gamble would call the first moment of truth, meaning that when you see Tide on the shelf, you have within 3 seconds, the consumer has basically decided whether they want to buy it or not. And it's the same thing on social and, in particular on LinkedIn. So the format I like for that headline is, this is not like universal, but broadly speaking, is to say what you do and who you do it for, followed by some demonstrated proof of your expertise. So, you know, um, it could be like, helping horizontal SaaS companies with SEO, slash 50 plus, websites overhauled since 2019, something like
So
that.
you're integrating the social proof in the end of it. So you're saying, this is what
Yeah,
I do. This is how I've done it. So, kind of like for you, because I'm just thinking about this, you're like, I help people brand themselves slash 750,000
creator with
followers
1.1
on,
million
on
followers
social cross media, something
is
like
what I
that.
say.
So
Yeah.
you
Yep.
bring that social proof in
Yep.
immediately. So there
Or,
isn't a debate once or
exactly. Or, the second part of that sort of depends on the assets you have to work with. So for example, for you, I would say for sure Wall Street Journal bestselling author would be the thing to lead with there, because as you've noted, that's kind of the thing that's most persuasive. For someone else, like let's say you've been, let's say you're a marketer and you've been it could be like 3 times marketing leader or something like that, or if you've won an award, it really depends, but just something where you just plop that down on your car on the table, and instantly it's like, clearly I know what I'm doing, as you can see by the following. And if you don't have, if you feel like you don't have the assets to support that, that probably means you need to revisit the first part of it, because you might be overplaying your hand.
It's getting to that point where you can stand out as that 1% and making sure that you're in that environment and say, listen, this is a reason you should listen to me. This is how it works.
Yep.
And there are some people, we talked about before, entrepreneurs, we have done a lot. We worn a lot of hats. And
Yep.
this is probably why you've had 8 iterations of it, because you're like, well, this and then this. But what I loved about it was you didn't go up and tell the ocean when you wanted the waves to come in. You kind of listened to the market, and it's like, oh,
Mhm.
this is when the waves come in. I'm going to adapt to that. It's a calm day. I'm going to deal with that. It's a rough day. I'm going to deal with that. The
Yep.
market will tell you what it's responding to. So many entrepreneurs, we get into situations when you try to scale going, no, this is my grandmother's favorite recipe of cookies and I love them. And now everyone has to love them. And no one cares about your grandma. No one
Yep.
cares about her cookies. React
Yep.
to the market, respond to the market, put your ego aside, get into the 1%. So we've got
Yep.
our tagline coming in with social proof. We've
Yep.
decided that 1%, we're going to do this 1%. When we go in next, I'm guessing it's the about us, or what is our next step from there?
Yeah, I mean, it could be either one, but I'll say the banner image. Just you could do them in either order, but the banner image, number one, should have your face in it, because people. It's very simple, but people want to do business with people that they know, like, and trust, and the more times people see your
Yeah.
face, the better. And you might not like the way you look. I certainly hate the way I look, but you got to put your face out there anyway, because just that's how it works. So put your face in there. And then also, I like to describe the outcome of what will happen after somebody works with you. Um, you could also tell them what you do, but I would say, like, paint a picture of the world after they work with you. So, for example, again, if you say, if you are that SEO consultant I mentioned, something like that, it's like, you know, um, build traffic that converts, something like that. So they're going to see what you do and who you do it for. They're going to see some social proof. And then when they look at the banner, they'll have some idea of what the world will look like, what the benefit of working with you is.
It's just so you're future focusing them in that environment. You're saying, okay, this is who I am. This is where I'm the best for it. And if you know your market well enough, this is the pain I'm relieving and the result you're going to get
Yeah,
from it.
exactly.
Are there certain tools that you use? It's like, hey, I love this versus that. If it's Canva or whatever else
I don't
that
think it
you could
matters.
possibly use,
It
doesn't really
doesn't
matter.
matter.
Thank
All
you.
this people like nerding out about tools. I think it's dumb. Just use whatever you want.
Thank you. Yes,
It's a
thank you.
total
I
waste of
hate when
time.
people nerd out. It
Yeah.
really is. Just get it done. I
Yep.
my favorite tool would be OPT, other people's time. Just have someone else fucking do it and get out of the way. I'm like,
Yep.
you make banners? Cool. Here's $5.
Yep.
Go make me a banner. I'm
Exactly.
going to go back to my life now. Yeah,
Yep.
that's my favorite tool in the world is OPT. Simple and easy. And when I'm investing, it's OPM. Using other
Yep.
people's money works out really well. So
I like it.
banner, 1%er,
Yep.
the result you're getting on a high level, putting your face out there, and then any sort of
And
social proof, which is great.
Yep.
When we get into there and you get in, what are the, when you look at content and design and starting to do these things, which I'm pretty sure I skipped a couple of steps, but how much should you be posting? I mean, because I get YouTube is very different than LinkedIn, which is very
Yep.
different than Graham, which is very different than TikTok, which is very different than Twitter, because I refuse to call it by anything else. You can kiss my ass.
Same
It's
here.
Twitter. It will be Twitter to the day I die. I'm not calling it X. No, it's Twitter. Shut up. You killed a brand, you schmuck. Anyway, when you go into this and you need to deliver content and you're trying to push these things in,
Yep.
what are the things you're doing? Is there a limit on how much you should post, how much you not post? You do it based off what other people are doing? What do we got here?
Well, it depends on your goals, which is the next step. I would actually the very first step in the process should be to, like, outline your goals in terms of business objectives. And I don't mean like become well known. I mean, well, why do you want to be well known? What is the specific outcome you want to achieve? Right? Like, close X number of deals, of the following value, or sell this much product at this, whatever. Like, in terms of, like, clear, specific business objectives is goal number one, or step number one. Then you create a profile that you believe will enable you to achieve that goal. And then the content piece, and sort of your question about how often and all that sort of stuff, also depends on that goal. Meaning that if I'm in B2B and I only need to close 3 deals to have a great year, well, that sends me in one direction. If I'm in, whatever, I have a friend of mine has a company that does like product marketing consulting. They have a productized offer that, they go through like probably 150 people a year or something like that. So they need, a bigger
Yeah,
pipeline,
more
right?
people. Right,
Right,
absolutely. They
exactly.
just need a much bigger pipeline.
So the answer depends on your goals. But broadly speaking, there's 2 jobs that you need to do on LinkedIn. Job number 1 is to make yourself visible, and you do that by content and by comments. This is a thing that a lot of people sort of overlook is the commenting. So job number 1 is to make yourself visible, and then job number 2 is to convert that visibility into business outcomes. Meaning, either get people to subscribe to your newsletter, product demo, like get on a discovery call, whatever that is. So, I would say most people, and I'm speaking very broadly here, but most people, if you post 2 or 3 times a week on LinkedIn, that's probably enough. You should also couple that with spending time engaging in the comments of other people's content. Um, Specifically, find creators who have an audience that is composed of your ICP and take time to leave very deliberate, thoughtful comments there. Don't force it. Don't try too hard. Like only do it when it actually makes sense. But I'll give you an example of this. I booked 5 discovery calls in like a day from one comment I left. There's a guy named Adam Robinson, who's the CEO of retention.com. If you're on LinkedIn, you might have seen him. He mentioned that he was looking for someone to help them with YouTube, and a couple people tagged me, and I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to leave him my pitch in this comment because, I also DM'd it to him, but I'm sure his DMs are a mess. So I was like, I'm just going to leave it in the comments. So I wrote, I don't know, probably a 3-paragraph comment saying like, well, here's exactly what I would do if I was in your shoes. Here's the questions I would want to answer if I worked with you. Um, and because that was a very specific, valuable comment, I got like probably 20 first connection requests from that. And I booked 5 discovery calls. And, so far, one of those people has turned into a client. Hopefully, a couple more will from a comment that probably took me 10 minutes to write. Which doesn't sound like a long time, but ask yourself this: do you usually take 10 minutes to write a comment? Probably not.
More importantly, do you spend more than 10 minutes to try and get 5 leads?
Yeah.
Because most
Well,
people are spending a
yes.
lot more time to do that. And I think the important part of this, because when we talk about scaling and doing this, is the reason it worked so well was you were specific. You
Yeah.
said, hey, here's exactly what you need to do. I'm providing value to you. And if you take it, great. If you don't, fine. But I'm not some random person that has no
Yep.
social proof. I've got, almost 1 million followers on this, 1 million subscribers and
Yep.
so on and so forth. So it was already built into your profile. So the minute goes, well, who is this schmuck giving me all this
Yep.
information? Right there in your tagline is like, oh shit, he's not a schmuck.
Yep.
He knows what he's talking about.
Yep.
He's moving forward in a way. So that kind of brings back that whole circle of this is why your
Exactly.
taglines need to look like this.
Yep.
This is why your banner. Because I'm sure
Exactly.
he went over and he clicked on it and he goes, who the hell is this guy? Click and went, oh shoot.
Well,
Oh, okay. This is a different ball game we're in now.
the
So
interesting part is
give
I
me tons
haven't
of value.
talked to him. I haven't talked to him yet, but 5 people in his audience contacted
Mhm.
me and booked discovery calls. I hope I talked to him, but I mean, whatever. I don't really care. I mean, if I do,
Find
awesome.
out.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's the 4 ways to get a customer or an audience. You can build it, you can buy it, you can borrow it, or you can beg for it.
Yep.
And most people fail all the time because the first thing they do is they beg. They're like, please like and subscribe.
Yeah.
No one's gonna do
Don't
that.
do that.
And then they buy it. So now you got all these cold leads. And then the
Yep.
other one, which is build it, which is just gonna take way too long. Just
Yep.
way too long. The best way to do is what you just did, which is you borrowed it. But in order to borrow it effectively, you had to establish yourself as that 1%er
Yep.
and say, here I am. This is what I did. I've given tremendous value. And go ahead. I know I'm just going it over again because someone's sitting there taking notes right now, going, motherfucker, chicken. That's
Yeah.
right. Which is why we create the lab report. So we can walk
So
you guys through
so
all this.
the
Go from there.
tactical step here is build a list of creators who have an audience composed of your ICP. Turn on notifications for them in the LinkedIn app, and every time you see them post, as quickly as you can, assuming you have time, go look at that post and see if you can leave a really, really, really good comment. And again, don't force it, but if you can, like make a habit out of this, people will notice for sure, just like they did. So you're going to post your own content, of course, but like you said, that's building it, which you should do, but also borrow it by engaging with other people's content. That's job number 1 of being visible. And then what you need to do is convert that visibility into business outcomes. So hopefully, you get lots of inbound and people DM you and like, Charles, you're so smart. I love all your content. Please do business with me. That will happen to some extent, but you don't want to rely on that. And especially in the beginning, you probably can't rely on that because you just don't have enough inbound. So what you need to do is think of this as a funnel and move people down the funnel. Meaning, if anybody engages with your content in any way, whether that is, a like or a comment or whatever, you have permission to then interact with them in some way. I would go look at their profile. And if you think that they're relevant, add them as a connection because that means that your content is going to come up in their feed more often. And also, they'll just feel closer to you. You can also, and when you do that, send them a personal note. There's a way to do that. Like if you're doing it on desktop, it's easy. In the mobile app, I don't know why they hide this, but the default is just send them a connection with no message. What you want to do is go down. There's an option that says personalize invite. Use that one and just send them a little note there that is based on something in their profile, so you know that they know that you didn't just copy and paste it. Literally anything. Like if they're from Kansas, you'd be like, "Hey, I was in Wichita last summer. It was really hot." Literally anything,
One of
so
the
that
things
it's personalized.
I found out recently in LinkedIn, because I'm getting messaged through there, that I can send voice notes, which is something I love more than anything else because I can't spell to save my life. My grammar is horrible. It's embarrassing. So it's just easier for me to hold it down and go, hi, blah, 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 blah,
Sure.
send. Hi, blah, blah, blah. And what I found is my open rate with those skyrocket. Because sending a voice message, you're like, oh my God, this guy actually sent me a message.
Yeah.
It's really, really simple. It's really, really easy. And I won't do that with all of them, but I will sit there and every once in a while, I'm like, hey, booga, 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 booga. Normally when I'm driving to the gym or just driving to do errands, I'll just go through and rapid fire. It's also what I do on Graham. I'll just sit there because it seems to it converts because like, wow, this is actually someone took the time out to do this. So as you're rebranding yourself, which, you had the idea before and you front loaded it, you're going through these different iterations, you're now reaching out, you've got the social proof. What are your next steps beyond that? With if you're going in and you're teaching your potential future clients now about how to rebrand themselves and do that, as you started, going through and hunting their LinkedIn, do you hunt to their other socials? Do you go after their website? What are the other things that you found that convert on the highest level if they want to scale?
Meaning, can you clarify? I'm not sure I understand.
Absolutely. So it's not just LinkedIn, right? We have
Yeah.
these other ideas of you encourage people to, hey, we got to go after your website. We got to go after your Gram. We got to go after your YouTube station. You've got to
Oh,
publish a
I see.
book. This is what your lead magnet looked like.
No,
What are
you
the
don't
other
need to
things that you do?
no, you don't need to do all that shit. You could, but it's like anything else in business. Like there's a list of things in your business that need to be fixed. That's probably 10 miles long, right? And it's never going to get any shorter than that. There's an endless list of things you could do, but you just got to start with something and go on from there. So to your point earlier about playing to your strengths, I think unless there's something out there that's just like glaringly horribly broken and wrong, ignore it and just focus on LinkedIn because like put it this way. When you're on LinkedIn, do you click on anybody's website? Do you Google them and go find their Instagram? Probably not. Right? You don't. Like I had somebody who she hired me like months ago and I, talked to her like fairly often and she was like, "Oh, by the way, your website's really nice. I never looked at it before now." Right? It's like she already paid me. We've worked together. She never looked at my website. So my point here is like, don't let that stuff hold you back unless it is truly like a crippling liability. Just ignore it. Like a LinkedIn profile is fine. I know somebody who has a very successful, like 6-figure agency. The agency didn't even have a website for the first year and a half it existed. Like you don't need all that shit.
And I feel so much better about the fact that I haven't focused on my LinkedIn or my website in years, and I just now starting to update this stuff because it was just I wasn't paying attention to anything because just work was coming in. So that makes me feel a little bit better, less wanting to play in traffic at the moment. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
What are some of the tools? I know you were talking about we don't get married to any of these specific tools. What are the things that you found because you have had such radical success in so many different areas that you're like, hey, this is this book that this changed it, or this is this one supplement that changed it. What are the things that you have found that, God, if I could have gone back, if I just knew about this and this on a practical, not as far as a life lesson, because God knows we've had enough of those,
Sure.
It is what it is. What are the things that you're like, you know what, this thing, I wish I knew about this one thing? What are the things that you've had that you've come across that you're like, wow, these are game changers for me?
Autism.
Okay. Figuring out that. All right. And what have you
Yes.
done to offset that?
I don't offset it. It just
You
I
lean
just
into it.
yeah, because I mean,
Awesome.
I'm not gonna change it, right? Um, so I just have to understand who I am and how I work, and that's the reason why, like, I am uh, I'm, like, biologically incapable of bullshitting. Like, it's literally the way my brain works. Autistic people are not good at this. And so I've just decided to lean into that. For example, with my LinkedIn content, I make it, like, very, like, no bullshit, like, brutally honest type stuff because those are the people I wanna work with because I know from past experience, if you're the type of person that, wants me to be gentle and, whatever, like, it's just not me. Like, I'm a very thoughtful, like, caring, kind person, but the way I express that, it'd be like, "Charles, your website fucking sucks. We need to fix it. Here's what we should do." And
Absolutely.
I wanna work with the type of people who go, "Oh, awesome. Thank you for telling me that. And yeah, that sounds good. Let's do it." I don't
And when
want I
when
don't
I
wanna work with people where I have to go, stroke their ego and blah, blah, blah. So,
very pretty. No, you're in my way.
yeah,
Move. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So, but anyway, you don't want life lessons. Man,
No,
honestly,
it's
like,
fine if you want to share 'em.
no, no, no. Honestly, man, the biggest tactical tool tip I would say is to just don't fucking worry about them because it's a total waste of time. Everybody I know who, like, obsesses over using the latest new, gee whiz tool and stuff, they're never
Mhm.
the most productive people. The most productive people I know all use the dumbest, most basic shit like Apple Notes, and fucking Gmail and, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm just not the person to ask about that because I don't think that stuff matters very much. Just decide on your goal and use the least complex tool you can use to execute on that goal is my advice.
I agree. One of the guys who was the best trader that I've ever met as far as doing high frequency trading, I was in his IT, so this is 20 something years ago. I took his keyboard away because it was missing all the keys. I was like, oh shit, his keyboard's broken. I'm going to give him a new keyboard. And he came out and he's like, where's my keyboard? And I was like, I gave you a new one. He's like, give me my old one back. And he was
Yeah.
absolutely on the spectrum and he crushed
I
it. But
was
he
gonna
had
say it
his thing that
sounds
worked a very specific way.
sounds
Don't fucking
spectrum-y.
touch my
Yeah.
keyboard. I was like, copy that. I'm not going to
Yeah.
touch your keyboard. The people I know I just did a podcast with somebody. He's manic bipolar. And he sat there and there was this whole guilt loop that he had for years and years and years about being manic bipolar. And then it took him about 3, 4 years ago. He just leaned into it. And he's like,
Yeah.
this is what helped me crush it. I've realized that this was a strength. It wasn't a weakness. I'm going to
Yep.
lean into this. And I'm only going to work with people that doesn't rustle their feathers up. I'm like,
Yep.
listen, if I do, I'm not your person. I'm not your guy. The pool's big
Exactly.
enough. There's enough people on the planet. Get out of my way. I'm just going to get into it. Well, it sounds like I need to get out of your way so I can go fix my LinkedIn profile because it's terrible. So having someone like you, I might have to pick your brain. I'm like, excuse me, sir, how do I fix my shit? It's really broken.
Happy to chat.
So that'd be really helpful. I really appreciate you coming on and being direct and to the point and not doing any fluff. I think people walked away with an immense amount of tangible things. How do people find you? How do people track you down? And where do you want them to track you down if they do?
FinnMcKenty.com is my website, which you can look at if you want. But I would say LinkedIn is probably the best place to look me up. So just look me up on there, FinnMcKenty. And always happy to chat to anybody if you think I can help.
All right, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on.
The market doesn't care about your feelings or your comfort zone. It only responds to value and authenticity. Stop waiting for permission to pivot, stop overthinking your tools, and start executing on what actually moves the needle.